teeth, I got a lot of shine. Running up the number, that's a lot of crime. Try to take it from me, must be out your mind. I'm big time, lot of slime. Smoky in the air, that's a lot of crime. Pockets running over with the dollar sign. Try to take it from me, yeah. Big time, big time, big time, big time. Running up the numbers, that's a lot of crime. Try to take it from me, must be out your mind. Lot of shine. Smoky in the air, that's a lot of crime. It's running over with the dollar sign. Try to take it from me. Big time. I got a lot of shine. Running up the numbers, that's a lot of grind. Try and take it from me, must be out your mind. I'm big time, lot of shine. Smoky in the air, that's a lot of crime. Pockets running over with the dollar sign. Try and take it from me, from me, from me, from me. Big time, number 9. Down in my teeth, I got a lot of shine. Running up the numbers, that's a lot of crime. Try and take it from me, must be out your mind.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to a Monday edition of the YSN Power Hour. DJ Yoakley flying solo like Han on the Millennium Falcon today, trying to battle. Lost my voice sometime between last night, yesterday, and in this morning. So you're gonna have to deal with me. This is gonna be an opportunity for us to just have a little chit chat. We're gonna talk about all the great things that we do on the Power Hour. Naturally, a lot of great sports going on over the weekend, including our opportunity to discuss high school sports, and the power rankings have been released today. So we'll update you on the power rankings, where your teams fall in, as well as kind of an update on the big dogs, because we had a big dog champion crowned last night at 12:01, or I guess this morning at 12:01. So we'll have that for you, the unveiling of the big dogs of the Valley for week number 5, I believe this is, for both. Because it would be last week, so week 5. Before we get to anything, it is, what is this day in sports history, you ask? Well, let me break it down for you. Coincidentally, on Black Monday, which is what this is called, because it's the day after the regular season, where all the NFL coaches and executives seemingly get fired because they've waited for this opportunity, the front offices, and now they're doing it. You know how it goes. Brian Flores gets fired from Miami. A lot of head scratching going on for that. But did you know on this day in 1996, Jimmy Johnson, yes, Hall of Famer Jimmy Johnson, announced as the new coach of the Miami Dolphins. So this date has some significant history for the Miami Dolphins franchise, being that Johnson in 96 was brought in, and in 2022, what I think was one of the best coaches in the entire league, in Brian Flores, is on his way out. And I think there's probably, I'd say, upwards of 20 teams that would love to get Flores not only on staff, but have him lead the charge here in 2022, moving into 2023. So we'll see how that goes. And there's some local ties to the Dolphins as well, so we'll see what that means for our local folks here in the Valley. But without further ado, it is that time of the show here on Monday that we give you what you're here for. We give you the YSN Power Rankings, brought to you by Armidas Kitchen. This week's Power Rankings brought to you by Armidas Kachina, perfect for your graduation party. If you're looking to make a splash this graduation season, make sure you book Armidas Kachina at armidaskachina.com. Salem, for the third week in a row, takes the top spot at 12-1, a big jump for West Branch. At 11-3, they jump up from 5-2. Poland sitting still in that bronze spot at 10-1. Liberty takes a little bit of a slide, still perfect on the season though, at 11-0, sitting at number 4. Louisville comes in at number 5, 7-3. Then it's Canfield at 6. Howland at 7. Brookfield climbs a little bit at 8. Champion up to 9. And Garfield back on the charts at number 10 at 6-5 overall. Welcome back, Lady G-Men. Despite falling to New Philadelphia earlier this week, it is East Liverpool at the top of the charts at 9-2. Camel doing everything they can to put the pressure on the Potters at 9-1. Springfield climbs up a spot to number 3 with a perfect 9-0 record. West Branch following suit with 8-0 record, sitting at number 4. Cheney slides down to number 5 at 7-6 overall. Louisville holds tight at the number 6 spot at 8-2. Carter Mooney jumping from number 9 up to 7 with an 8-3 record and a couple of impressive victories. Struthers at number 8 at 5-2. Bourbon back on the charts at 5-5. And Ursuline rounds out the top 10 at 6-5. Again, always, our Power Rankings brought to you by Armidas Kachina. Get them now for your graduation parties this spring. And there they are, the Power Rankings. Pat Narduzzi, checking in saying, saw my hometown Ursuline Irish coming into the Power Rankings at number 10. Pumped to be an Ursuline alum. Yeah, you should be. Because the Irish, even though they're slipping down the charts a little bit, it looks like they're going to hold on here at least another week. Let's get to those charts. Let's look at the girls first here in week 6. Salem. And what's crazy about this is for Salem, this is week 3 at the top of the charts, and they debuted on the chart, and they have not left with a 12-1 record now. There's a lot of people that, it's interesting when you put together a power rankings like this. It's similar to the success factor that like a Tom Brady or a Patrick Mahomes has. Once you're at the top, people are just throwing daggers at you and giving all kinds of excuses or situations to where you shouldn't be at the top of the charts. But Salem, to me, they were, again, the unanimous number 1 across the board for the ladies' side of things for the power rankings this week. And Salem, again, holding their own. Just day after day, game after game. The Lady Quaker excuse me. Lady Quakers and Coach Hamilton able to push through at 12-1. Now, here was the big jump. West Branch. They were in 5 spot last week, and there was, they've suffered 3 victories obviously to this point, but 3 losses to this point, but the victory that changed everybody's mind on the voting was their victory over Marlington. And Marlington suffering their first loss of the season to the Lady Warriors, and that changed the minds of our voters, and to the point where they propelled them up to the number 2 spot. So when you look at this and when you read this chart, there's a lot of people that look at that and say, well, how do you jump a team that's undefeated in Liberty and a team in Poland who has been as sturdy as concrete over the last, 4 or 5 weeks? And the answer is West Branch is on a pace right now, and they've got a matchup with Salem, I believe, this week that will be really interesting, and that'll shake up the power rankings a lot for next week. Because as fast as they went up, if they suffer another loss in a sweep to Salem this year, West Branch could find themselves probably in the 5 slot down because of all the great talent that's on this board right now. I mean, you look at Liberty, they're undefeated, and I've already had a lot of people reach out and say, how do you have a team that is number 2 fall down to number 4 and team that's number 5 jump up to number 2 based on 1 victory? Well, our voters obviously look at the strength of schedule, and Marlington's a great team, and to the point where you look at Salem, that 1 in that right-hand column, that's Marlington. That's the only loss that Salem has this year, and West Branch able to add a number to their left column, the win column, in order to get them to jump. So it's going to be interesting. Canfield, another one of those teams at 7-4, people will look at and say, how are they still in? Strength of schedule. Just pure and simple. Strength of schedule. Louisville's in that same boat. Champion At 8-1 now, they lost to Howland, who is listed on our number 7 spot. Howland actually falls 1 spot due to, my guess is just the talent in the top 5-6 spots above them. And Howland, to me, not getting a fair shake. To beat the people that they're putting in front of them. Alyssa Pompalia is one of the best athletes in this entire YSN family, if you're asking me. She is a absolute standout athlete. So Howland in the conversation as well. Champion back on the board and climbing from 10 to 9, and then Garfield gets back on at 6 and 5. But it's, again, the body of work that they've compiled that gets them back on at the number 10 spot. So congratulations to these teams in Week 6 for making the power rankings. I'm looking forward to that and seeing how many of these teams survive this week, because it's going to be a major shakeup, I think. Last week was kind of the appetizer, and this week, to me, is going to be the entree of what teams can survive and who is going to emerge. I really think Jackson Milton deserves to be on the power rankings, even if at 10. Not to knock Garfield at all, but last week we saw Springfield on the power rankings. They are nowhere to be seen. That loss to Jackson Milton, even though it wasn't a huge loss by any means from a numbers perspective, it was a loss nonetheless, and there's a lot of people that lost faith in Springfield for the top 10 seedings. So let's go over to the boys' side of things. East Liverpool 9-2, suffered a loss to New Philadelphia. Not an awful one. Lost by 12, I think, was the final score. But you look at it, and it's crazy. People are bought into East Liverpool right now, and Camel has to be thinking to themselves, what do we have to do to leapfrog into that number 1 spot? I feel like Camel's been in the number 2 forever, but you just got to keep doing what you're doing, I think, and that's the message of the voters right now. East Liverpool cannot suffer another loss, I don't think, and keep a hold of that number 1 spot, because look who's behind him. You got Camel, who is just 1 loss on the season, and that's to Lowellville. Then you have Springfield and West Branch, who are undefeated to this point, and Springfield putting it to Salem this weekend, and in a big way. I mean, to the point where there were no answers for Coach Andres and the Quakers. Springfield just kept on coming, and they had multiple, almost the same way they do in football. They had so many people, so many different answers for any question that Salem had, and they just kept cashing in. I mean, Alex Rothwell, one of the best big men in the entire area as far as I'm concerned, had no problem just going up, grabbing offensive boards, slinging it out to guys like Bo Brungard and Jacob Joyce, and they were cashing in. It's next man up every night for Springfield, and that's why they continue to climb the charts here now at number 3, as they were moved up 1 from last week. West Branch was number 5, now number 4. Obviously, Jackson Hendershot, Drew DeShields, and the crew continue to just their winning ways. And I think there's a lot that goes, we've talked about it on this show, there's a lot that goes into being able to win in multiple sports because you do so well in one. And you look at Springfield and West Branch, the winning has completely spilled over into basketball season based on what they did in football season. Cheney is a team that we are looking very closely at right now. It's 7-6. They were in the 3 spot last week, and now they dropped down to 5. And there's a lot of people wondering what's going on at Cheney. There's so much talent on the floor there, and a big win for Cardinal Mooney over Cheney last week. That's kind of why Mooney's up from 9 to 7, and Cheney's down from 3 to 5. And it could be a situation where if Cheney continues to slide a little bit, Mooney might leapfrog them. And this is a Mooney team that plays really hard. If you haven't seen Coach Palermo and his Cardinals out on the floor yet, I gotta just implore you to go out and check them out, even if it's on YSN. Watch the way they play. Defensively, they are absolutely outstanding. Just absolutely outstanding. They're fun to watch. That's where I'll leave it. Struthers, the team we talked about on Running Point today, once you have so many guys graduate and impact players graduate, you think that it's all over. You think that it's done. The team won't be the same. It turns into a rebuilding program rather than reloading. But I gotta admit, Struthers has done a phenomenal job at reloading the Wildcat basketball program. You know, they could have just played dead. They could have just rolled over, said, we're just going to cash in. But here Struthers is continuing to rise up the charts, making their debut last week at the 10 spot. Now they're making jumps up to the 8 spot as Ursuline slides down from 7 to 10. And Boardman back on track as their record shows they're 5-5. But the issues that they have been having internally, from illnesses and their strength of schedule is ridiculous. Just absolutely ridiculous. And Boardman looks to be back on track and might have all their starters on the floor for the first time in some time. So that's the way it rounds out. So East Liverpool, Camel, Springfield, West Branch, Cheney, Louisville, Carter Mooney, Struthers, Boardman, and Ursuline. That is your top 10 and your power rankings, brought to you by Armidas Kachina. We thank them so much for what they do and their proud support of us. And let's catch up on, see if I can get this off the board here. There we go. Let's catch up on some of these. We got a lot of comments, and I appreciate you guys helping me out through the show today. What do we have? Lane says, the Quake Show is number 1. Let's go. Abby Perry is cold. Yes, she's got a great support staff there. I mean, from top down, you look at Coach Hamilton and the coaching staff that they have, and then you look at the leadership. I mean, you've got how many Davidsons can you have on one team? And Salem is stretching it, which I love because it makes my job as an announcer so easy. So it's either a Davidson or a Hutton, or a McClish. So I'm usually pretty good. Perry's in there too. So congratulations to the Lady Quakers. They just continue to roll, but they've got their hands full this week. I believe this is the week, if I'm not mistaken, that they play West Branch and Marlington in the same week. So this is going to be a big week for the Lady Quakers, and they'll be able to, hopefully, from their standpoint, they'll be able to show why they are the undisputed and number 1 power in the power rankings. West Branch does have a head-to-head win over Poland. Yeah, they do. They do. But as we talked about before, Jeff, I think that, not taking anything away from West Branch, but I think it's a different Poland team now than they played earlier this year. The same way that it's a different Salem team now than it was earlier this year. It's a different West Branch team now than it was earlier this year. You look at basketball, and I think that's the biggest thing in basketball. Football teams, typically, you know what you have, and I don't want to say it's the same team from week 1 to week 10 or week 15 or whatever it may be, but they're very similar. There's characteristics. Basketball, I feel like it takes you until probably mid-December to get in basketball shape, and then you start seeing where the chips lie. And I really think that a lot of our teams in this area are just getting started, and that's why it's so much fun to watch them on a regular basis, be able to watch them day in, day out, night in, night out on YSN, as opposed to just doing one game and then 3 months later maybe seeing them again in the postseason. So that's why it's so much fun for us and what we do, and why I think, are legitimate power rankings, because we see them on an every night basis. Nick says, rivals at 1 and 2? Yeah. And I'll be honest, I did not vote West Branch up to number 2. I still think Liberty has a stake in number 2. They haven't lost. They haven't done anything to lose their spot. Same with Poland. I don't think they've done anything to lose their spot. But again, this is a democracy. The voters voted West Branch into the number 2 spot with their points, and you know what? You can't say anything bad about it, because I would argue, and let's pull that up one more time, I would argue that between the top 4, the top 4, there's no argument to me. You can jumble them in any order, maybe besides Salem. I still think Salem is a number 1 hard. You could jumble the top 4 in really any order between 2 and 4, and you can make an argument. So you look at that. Yes, Nick, rivals will be at 1 and 2. It's going to be interesting, because next week, if they do play this week, and I believe they do, I'm going to have to do a little research, because that's my game, actually, I think. Wednesday's Canton South at Salem. So the next day would be Saturday. That's next week, I think. It's next week. So I stand corrected. So I apologize for that. But that's going to be a big one. Nate says, Demi Watson is an absolute monster. No disagreements there. No disagreements whatsoever there. Again, we have so much talent here in the Valley, just from I really dedicate a lot of it, or attribute a lot of it to AAU, and how big AAU has become over the last decade. And now we're seeing the fruits of the labor of these coaches. And, say what you want. Yes, does it distract sometimes from other sports? It does. But at the same time, it also levels up everybody's game. So you're going to see a better product on the floor because they're playing more basketball year round. So are there really losers when it comes to that? I think that when you're looking at other sports, other coaches will make a case for it. If you're playing basketball in the fall, maybe your volleyball coach or your football coach or whatever, golf, whatever sport it may be, they might have something to say about it. But at the end of the day, from an AAU standpoint, it makes kids better because they're getting the reps that maybe they're not getting in practice, because everybody's trying to share gyms and everybody's trying to share times, and share resources at that point as well. So I think AAU has done a great job of being able to really inject a lot better product onto our basketball floors during basketball season. But people want to complain about taking time away from kids and other sports and stuff like that. I mean, that's an individual family decision on a case-by-case basis. So Boardman is very good defensively, but at times struggle on offense. That's why they lost to Poland 28-26. I don't think there's anybody that disagrees with that. I always say that Boardman is very similar to Salem's girls team from the standpoint of you're not going to see a lot of big numbers out of their offense. And Coach Birch, again, hangs his hat on his defense and says, listen, if we're going to beat teams, it's going to be because they can't score against us. 34-24 victory, I think it was, against Austintown Fitch. So when you look at that and you start looking, if you get to a 50 on a Boardman, you're probably going to win. You're probably going to win because it's not that I don't think they can hang with you, but they're not playing their game. They're not playing their game at all, and it's the same with Salem. If it's a 50-point game, and those buckets are going in and in and in, Coach Hamilton will probably tell you straight up that they're going to have their hands full with that. So it's going to be interesting to see, if they go up against a powerhouse, an offensive juggernaut. I would love to see, what Boardman does against. We've seen them against Cheney. What would they do against an East Liverpool? You know what I mean? A team that lives above the rim, a team that continues to just absolutely hammer it down, because Liverpool has been tested. We saw them play Lincoln Park earlier this season, a team in Pennsylvania that consistently wins state championships. Nate Conley not afraid to go over there, take his team over, and compete. And then we saw New Philadelphia, which is a very, very good team. They lost by 12. And, Toothman, hopefully he's okay. He's able to come back. We certainly want to see him because he is fun to watch for this Potter offense. But, I really admire coaches and programs that are not afraid to go up against people they shouldn't be playing. Does that make sense? I mean, when we're talking about that, they shouldn't be playing them. There's other teams that they can play, but they're doing it to make themselves better. Basketball and baseball as well, softball, one of those sports that you can go up against a powerhouse and not worry about will we make the playoffs or not. You got a free ticket, right? You got a free ticket. It's punched. Go play, find your weaknesses, find your strengths, and see, okay, if we were to play a team like this in our division, in the playoffs, in the tournament, would we be able to compete, and how can we do that? So I love seeing teams like East Liverpool going over, but I would love to see some matchups like a Boardman matchup versus East Liverpool, or a Cheney versus East Liverpool, or some of the local teams being able to air it out a little bit and showcase and flex a little bit on each other from that standpoint. To be fair, Cheney lost to a perennial power in Kennedy Catholic, but that Mooney loss surprised me. Yeah, I think I don't really see a lot of people raising an eyebrow to Mooney anymore. I think that was the signature win for Carter Mooney, without a doubt. And when you look at that, from that standpoint, Mooney became a household name when they beat Cheney that night. I mean, I remember the texts that I was getting from that. People were saying, okay, they were more blaming Cheney for losing as opposed to Mooney for winning. And the more we got to watch that game and break it down, I really think that it was Mooney that took advantage of all the situations they did. They have a work ethic. I'm not saying that Cheney doesn't, But the work ethic that Mooney put forward in that game, they knew that they could pin themselves right back on the basketball map by just being able to beat one team and then move on to the next one. And Mooney really is playing game by game by game. They won that tournament in Salem, the holiday tournament, and I think it's changed them significantly. It's given them a confidence which we haven't seen from a Cardinal Mooney team in some time. And Coach Palermo does a great job of taking calculated risks with his players to put them in the best situations to win. And his players have bought in, and you can see it. It's completely obvious. Does that mean they're going to run the table? No. But does it mean that they're going to be in great situations to have great victories the rest of the way? I do. I think Coach Palermo does a great job of putting his team in situations not to lose and situations to go for the victory at certain times during the game. Let's go to Nick says Mooney is ranked too low, should be in the top 5 at least. Listen, they're going to be there. They're going to be, I really do think they're going to be there. But that's what makes it so fun, Nick, is being able to say, why should they be there? You know, a win over Cheney, yes. But I'm one of those guys that you look at the CFB full polls during the year, just because one team loses, they shouldn't drop 9. They should not drop 9 spots. They're there for a reason. That's why I have such a hard time with, and I apologize for my voice, I have such a hard time with Liberty falling down in the girls' rankings from 2 to 4. That's tough for me because they didn't do anything wrong. They didn't even lose. I have faith that Coach Gunther will get the ship steering in the right direction by the end of the season. Listen. Coach Gunther is unbelievable. You know, the job that he's doing there is incredible. He's their new movie. I don't even know. It's a film room, I guess, is what you could break it down to. But their whole aura around Coach Gunther is we're going to outwork you, and you're going to know it. You know, so there's some teams that are able to get by Ursuline right now, but you're not going to outwork Ursuline. Like to outwork a Coach Gunther team, you've got to have your nose to the grindstone for the entirety of the game. And right now, there's not too many teams that can do that. You know, there's so many distractions going on with COVID and things of that nature and injuries and, you know, getting your team in basketball shape and let's face it, there's kids leaving programs right now because they're not getting the playing time they think they deserve. That doesn't change when you get to high school, but you have to go earn it. And there's teams right now players that don't understand that it's a team game. It takes 5 to 7, sometimes 15 players in order to win and accomplish what you want to accomplish. And we're just not seeing that across the board right now. I think that the pandemic has made a lot of people a lot more selfish from a standpoint and, you know, I deserve this and I deserve... Listen, nobody deserves anything because of tenure. I'll tell you that. If you're a senior thinking you deserve minutes, if you're a junior thinking you deserve minutes over a freshman or a sophomore or a fellow junior, sorry, pal. That's not the way it works. You got to outwork them. And I think and you don't see it often, but you see it often enough and almost too much that people think because they're seniors that they've got to... They get the spot. Hey, look, Amo's here. What's up, Amo?
What's going on?
Thanks for popping by. Did they change up all our stuff in the background? Unbelievable. All right, let's change that up. Let's get the bricks up. There's the bricks. All right. What are your thoughts, man? The power rankings come out today. Talk to me through what...
Surprised by Liberty.
You were the guy that put West Branch at 2, though.
But I had Liberty at 3.
There's a lot of people that slipped Liberty down further.
See, I had a hard time with that because the argument with West Branch and Poland, I think, is a fair one, right? Sure. But West Branch has beat Poland, and Marlington. Are there 2 bigger girls' wins in the YSN area that West Branch with those 2 wins? Those are 2 pretty big wins, I think.
They're big wins. I mean, they are.
But they had a letdown against Canfield, so a massive letdown against Canfield.
But listen,
Canfield beat them by what, 15?
What about
16?
What about Salem beating West Branch and beating Canfield?
That's actually 2 big ones too. Yeah. Then Salem will get to prove it Saturday against West Branch, and then Saturday Marlington, then another Saturday against West Branch.
It's at Marlington, so we won't have that game, unfortunately.
Then it's home against West Branch, right? Because they were at West Branch the first time.
West Branch yet, personally.
So Salem's got, they play South Wednesday. should be an easy one for them.
And there's some issues with South right now. They're having
Yes.
some illnesses. So
I still don't think they're bad though. I mean,
No.
they're young.
But I mean, you've been there. If you have a team that is a number one ranked team, no matter what it is, whether it's YSN or Joe Schmo,
Yeah.
ranking them number one,
I think it gets to you, doesn't it?
you're going to get their best punch. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
And Salem doesn't cower away from that. And I think that's what's so exciting to me is these girls do not care about we're going to get your best. They want your best, as a matter of fact, because they want to see if their game stacks up against yours. And
Yeah, I agree.
Salem knows their game. They know their game is defense. And I'm anxious to see because this West Branch offense can score. They can put the ball in the bucket, no problem.
Their defense, obviously.
And will West Branch be able to match it up again with Salem? Because that was another close game, and with a big win, over Marlington at the buzzer, will they be able to use that same blueprint for success against the Quakers?
I think Salem's going to come out with some fire, though. I mean, I know me and you and Chris did the United game. Salem brings it every game. I mean, even when they were losing to Marlington, they were down, I want to say, by close to 15 at one point. They were still playing like they were down 1. I mean, they always give their effort. So West Branch kind of lapses in that sometimes. Like they came out firing against Marlington. They came out hot, giving defensive, and then they went cold, and you could see the effort kind of dropped off a little bit, which is why Marlington kind of crept back in there. If they can match Salem, it would be a really good game, though. Question is can they match them?
That's always going to be the question. I mean, when you
Because
look at
what Hamilton's bringing it.
Yeah, I mean, that was the highest scoring game of the season for Salem in that United game, and there was a little bit of chip on the shoulder,
Which was a
stuff.
surprise because I would have guessed Salem would have scored over 50 more than they have just because of the team they have.
They get caught up in the 3-ball a lot, and you know what they say:
They do.
you live by the 3, you die by the 3, and
McClish is really the one that's been consistent all year, I think, from the 3, right? I mean,
But that's
Harry
elite,
has been
you know?
too, but she's been kind of off and on every now
Abby
and then.
Davidson has been red hot from there. If we're talking about the most consistent player, you got to look at Riley Hutton for Salem.
Yes.
She has
brings
been, again, night in, night out, the player that they lean on whenever their back's against the wall or they need
Yep.
a jolt of energy. But Cami Rome, you can't take anything away from her. The defense.
I work with her dad. Nick's awesome.
SWATzilla, dude. She is SWATzilla. She's a monster in the paint, and she's the tallest girl on the team, I believe. And
I think so.
She shows it. She shows it because she owns that paint. If you're coming inside, you're getting Cami Rome, and you got to be ready.
She's a really good rebounder.
Oh yeah, because
Really good.
the one word I would, and I'm not trying to just absolutely salt love onto Salem right now, but they are fearless. That Salem team is fearless. Jenna McClish, she's a whole 5 foot something, 5 foot maybe, and she'll go up against your biggest defender and she'll go for a ride. If you're tying it up, she'll go for a ride. She's not afraid of it. She'll stand right back up and smile.
I know Salem girls play Ursuline. Do they play Poland to finish out the year? Do they play Poland at all?
That I don't know. We'd have to check that. And again, people look at me like I know the schedule. Quinn does such a good job of putting these schedules together.
I can't remember I don't think they play Poland this year. I know they have in the past, but I don't think they do this year because that would be a really good matchup.
We got here we go, DJ Folkley. Campbell is looking really good right now, but that Louisville loss still surprises me. Although Louisville only lost to Springfield by 4, Louisville is a very good basketball team. They are.
Louisville lost to Heartland as well.
But yes, they did.
They shouldn't have lost that game.
They shouldn't.
But
that
did.
was Heartland's. To me, that's a Heartland win, not a Louisville loss. You know what I mean?
I agree.
You got to look at things in the correct light.
I agree.
From that standpoint, because that Heartland team's good, and they receive votes to get on this week. And do I think they should be there? I do, but who are you going to kick off?
It's like what I told you in that text. I think they deserve to at least be talked about, and that's why I put them on there.
I don't disagree.
That's me from just my perspective. I like what Josh has done, and I mean, so I did the I did Columbiana versus United. Was that Tuesday with Chris? and I see a lot of similarities between Columbiana and Heartland. Heartland's got Berdovich.
Mm-hmm.
Columbiana's got Mannion, or Million.
Nick Million.
Yeah. Heartland's surrounding four are a little better than Columbiana's surrounding four, but the problem with Heartland is you can stop Berdovich. He's fine with that.
Can you?
If the other four are playing well, I don't think you can, but that's what separates, I think, Heartland from some other teams is Berdovich is fine with not doing anything. I mean, you watch him play, he's completely fine giving the ball up to other players, which I like. I like that about him.
Who would you compare Berdovich to if you were comparing to a pro player?
Chris Paul, maybe?
Ooh.
Because he leads by example, but doesn't he's probably better than Chris because he actually scores, right? Chris doesn't score so much.
I think he's Steph Curry.
Yeah,
he will shoot the ball from anywhere on the floor and make it.
I just like that he's willing to literally get 0 points. I think. I mean, I don't think there would be a game he'd get 0 unless he got hurt, but. He would be. I think he'd even tell you that he'd be fine with 0 if that meant they win.
Johnny Buckets, baby. The only thing he's worried about is the dub. Speaking of the dub, West Branch boys will be tested tomorrow when they play 9-1 Marlington. Should be a great game, says Michael Janaki.
It should be.
Don't disagree.
Marlington's kind of so. Me and Hartwig did their game against Canfield when they did that quadruple header, which was awesome. I think I want to see more teams do that. That was sweet. My cousin Connor is the senior on that team, and they're very Connor dependent, kind of very similar to how this sounds like Million. They're very dependent on Million playing well. That's Marlington, but they're starting to hit their rhythm with it's not just Connor now. But West Branch matches up really well with Marlington. I just put it out there. They'll probably put, if I had to guess, probably put Drew on Connor. That's what they've done in the past. But then again, you got two big dogs going at it, though. That's going to be interesting to see who they match up with from a standpoint because they match up very similar to each other.
I'm going to use a Mike Tomlinism, if I may. 2 dogs, 1 bone. And
yeah,
it's going to be fun to watch, man. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch. This is the best time. Again, I was saying before you jumped on, this is the best time of year for basketball because these games matter. You know?
It's like Boardman. I believe they got a big week. They play Canfield and Mooney.
Yep.
Boys.
Yep.
So that's a big week for them.
Yep.
They match up well against Mooney.
They do, but again, don't sleep on the
Mooney's
Cardinals.
coming at you. No, Mooney's coming at you.
They're
care.
Throwing. They don't care, and that's what I do love it about Ursuline and Mooney. And I know they hate being compared and being assimilated together. But I will say this. They're similar in the fact that they don't care who you are. They're going to roll up on you and they're going to play. Or they don't care if it's St. V's. They don't care if it's Boardman. They don't care. Come on, let's go. You know what? We got 5 guys. You got 5 guys. Let's see who wins. I love that.
I do like what Sigler said, though. That is true.
Louisville not getting the respect. Defeated New Philly, who just beat East Liverpool. 2 losses on the season. And 1 coming to 8-1 Hoover. I agree wholeheartedly.
I think it comes down to Louisville again. It's kind of like Waterloo girls. It's tough to cover them, right? I mean, that's our problem with YSN, right?
It's not that it's them not getting covered.
We don't have the people, right?
It's the teams that we don't have. You know what I mean? Like when they play,
especially with Louisville because they're independent.
Like if somebody would have told me about New Philadelphia, I would have been like, okay, great. Yeah, I don't know anything about them. We don't know anything about them from their standpoint. But you go and you look at these records, and that's why it's important to have guys like you and Siggs and all of our guys say, okay, what's the record for this team? Who do they play? Why are they 8-1? Why are they, and then say, okay, if Louisville wins, they deserve a little bit more respect. I think Louisville, if they can keep on keeping on, Al Jancic's having a great year. If he can keep on keeping on, and his teammates follow around him, they could be a top 3 team at the end of this. They really could be.
They have a couple big games. I don't want to say who they play because I forget, but I was looking at it. Biggest sleeper, probably Louisville, right? I mean, well.
Is it really a sleeper, though?
No, that's what I was going to say. It's not really a sleeper, though.
So all right, so we cover 10 teams on the power rankings. What's a team from 40 or from 11 to 54?
Top of my head's Lowville. but they'll have a chance to prove it against Springfield again. Louisville doesn't really like to be physical because all their big guys are perimeter guys, right? Except for Luceni. Luceni will go in and back you down, and Kyle Miller. But
Yes.
don't even get me started on that game.
You got to see that up close personal, didn't you?
Yeah, me and Sigler were talking, Josh. And I talked with Cody Cope's dad after the game. It was great fans over there.
Cody
I
Cope,
think
the trash
Louisville's
panda.
won. Oh, dude, he's awesome. I love him.
That dude's like a raccoon on trash when it comes to rebounds. I love it.
I would say Salem boys, but they just can't get it together. They're a sleeper because I think they can surprise teams.
How about Liberty?
That's a good. I haven't watched. I did watch them. Who did they play?
It's a good
I was
brand of basketball.
surprised. Trying to think. McDonald boys, I think, could
I'm
do
with you on
something.
that one.
If they can hit their stride, right?
Let them get healthy and see what happens.
Just trying to go through our teams here. Range could possibly.
They've got
They've
an
been
uphill
up and
battle.
down.
They've got an uphill
Yeah.
battle. To me, the team that people talk about just because it's Springfield, right? They talk about Springfield all the time just
They're
because
fun
it's
to watch.
Springfield and Bo's there. Yeah, look at Gerlach is
Canfield's another good one because
Gerdick is yes. Jake Gerdick is
Canfield's
a really
out of the
good
top
player.
10, right?
Yeah, they slid out.
Now, see, if they beat Boardman, I think they
To
would
me,
move
that's
in,
this, right?
Yeah. But then Boardman would play Mooney, so Boardman could essentially split and probably not move, right?
How are you? I mean, from my standpoint, how are you going to keep Canfield off if they beat Boardman?
I think Canfield would jump Ursuline, right? Ursuline's going through a tough stretch. They got some tough games coming up.
But then you're going to sit Boardman at 9 and Canfield at 10?
Oh, that's a good question. What would you do there?
To me, that's.
I think Boardman would still be
it's
above them
Canfield
because of their
9, Boardman
schedule.
10, if that's the way it goes.
Yeah.
But that's just me.
Canfield, they have some good games coming up too. They played Louisville already, if I remember correctly, or do they have Louisville? I know they either played them or they have them coming up, I think.
I believe they have them coming up, if I'm not mistaken.
Because that would be a good one.
You know the other team that is a sleeper for me, and it's unfortunate that they didn't get to. I don't know what happened. I didn't get to watch this game yet. I'm still looking to watch this. There was the Fitch versus Boardman game, where they lost by 10. Fitch usually in the 50s. You know what I mean? Usually
Played slow ball. They kind of, I don't want to say stall ball, but it's kind of what they were doing. I don't know if they had some players hurt. I would have to ask Mark. It seemed weird because it's not Fitch. LeBray is a good one. They're in a tough division, though.
Yeah.
I mean, they got what? They'll have Springfield, Lowville.
You talking about their conference?
No, just their division
Just
for
division.
basketball, right?
Okay.
Don't they have Springfield, right? Or are they division above them? It's tough because I always get these teams
I
confused.
get these
Basketball
messed up, especially
completely
going from
different than
to
football.
basketball. It's
Yep.
tough. Because you go from 7 to 4, and you're like, okay,
Yeah.
who do we got here? We got uncharacteristic for sure.
I would agree. It was weird. There was a lot of turnovers, sloppy.
Well, Boardman
both
will turn
teams.
you over. That's not uncharacteristic, and Coach
Yes.
Beanie knows that because there's nobody more studied up than Brian Beanie. I'll give him that. Pulling is
Pulling,
super.
I would agree.
Huh.
Their schedule is tough. As always, they always go out and play teams.
Which Poland is the real Poland? The Poland we saw at the beginning of the season, or Poland we're
Sure.
seeing right now? That's
Sure.
what I want to know. Because honestly, I think
I agree.
without naming people, the
I
offense runs
forgot
through
about
really
them, too.
2 people on Poland right now, and people. I
It's
mean,
like
I've seen
United.
the scouting reports; they're clamping down on those 2 guys, and I don't know if they're not healthy or what's going on, but I do. Poland should be there, but do I think they'll be on the top 10 at the end of the season? I don't, because you see how they. I mean,
Be tough to
tough
get in there.
games. Tough games. Any 8 is going to beat
Boys
you up.
top
That's
10
not
is
just football.
tough. Boys top 10 is tough. I'm telling you. Girls is tough too because of you only doing 10 teams, but I feel like I have a harder time doing boys than I do girls. I feel like the girls is more solidified, where the boys, it's so fluid because they're playing so many teams in YSN.
How about this one, Jeff calling it out the way he read my mind? Yeah, but sometimes they're too dependent on Dito and Colosimo.
It's like you,
But nailed it.
I was to get to that United comment. That was an uncharacteristic game for sure.
What's that?
The Urban Scholars. That's
yeah.
That wasn't like them.
Yeah, that was an interesting. I saw that and I had to do a double take because I couldn't believe that
Well,
that was not to take anything away from the Urban Scholars, but
I was talking to a guy at work. He goes to United. His brother is a sophomore that gets sometime varsity, and plays a lot of JV. It seemed like the refs they had.
This is never good when you start that sentence.
No. I think it's just a natural instinct. So Urban Scholars, I think, had 9 players there, on their roster, if I remember correctly.
My boy George
3 of them going into halftime had 3 fouls. Within the first minute and a half, 4 of them had 4 fouls. And it seemed like once they got the 4, they kind of swallowed their whistle because they knew if they kept there was some fouls that could have been called, but I think what they didn't want to foul out their team.
So let me ask you.
I don't know if that's right or wrong. Just from my objective, from just sitting back and taking away the YSN thing, even if I was there watching the game,
sure,
I would have said the same thing. It seemed like they didn't want to hurt Urban Scholars.
So this gets me to my question. All right, so we've all seen, heard, talked about umpires in baseball.
But they played well. I will not take away from Urban Scholars. They played a fantastic game. I mean, especially that Jamil Edwards. That dude was doing step backs.
From an official standpoint, Amo, when a game's going like that, when you come out and you're blowing the whistle early, don't you have to stay consistent throughout the rest of that game because you've already established, okay, this is the way this game's going to be called? Because
it's nothing against.
You can't start out with a strike zone like this, and at the end of the game, it ends up being like this. It's just not.
It's kind of what it seemed like, to be honest, because they had. I mean, scoreboard for fouls only goes to 10, but let me tell you, it was probably close to 20 that first half. And United didn't have many. I'm trying to remember if Urban Scholars were even in the bonus. They were either at 9 or 10, I think, as well. And it flipped second half. It was just one of those, it seemed like they didn't want to get Urban Scholars in trouble, which if I was a ref would probably be the same thing, right? You didn't want to hurt them. I agree with Bob, though, if foul's foul. But I don't blame the refs. It wasn't their fault why United lost. But they have other issues going on. But like Cody Cope was in foul trouble, which is kind of unusual for him. Well, he does play.
Mike Bartos says South Range Trills are going to make a run. Mark my words. It wouldn't surprise me. With Lexi Giles and that whole crew, Devin Sauerwein, wouldn't surprise me at all.
I agree. I like them. They're in a tough conference.
They've got experience in the tournament. That's the thing. And we talked about this on the air the other night.
Just like Poland.
That's it. Poland, Nick doesn't fear anybody or anything. He welcomes criticism. Anything, but he's very protective of his program and his girls for good reason. My thing is, Poland is going to be, not that they can't live up to what they've done over the last decade or so, but they are going to be the victims of people avoiding them in the tournament because of what they've done in their history.
Absolutely.
Similar to Salem, similar to United. You know, you look, and now when you establish programs, when coaches get to pick where they go, they don't have to they're not even in the same room anymore, as I understand it. Everything's virtual. So
are they
don't even have to look the guy or girl in the eye that they're going up against anymore. They can't read you like a poker table. They just say, hey, this is what I'm going off of. And that's why these power rankings to me are so important, because believe it or not, coaches will be looking at this down the line. I have to think that they're going to use this and say, hey, we want to see this, how this goes. We want to see why they're ranked this. And they'll be watching these shows and hearing our arguments about why teams are ranked where they are.
That's like I think you're talking Friday about the tradition of Poland girls. losing girls. It's like West Branch and Salem. Like everybody says, oh, they lost girls, right? And what do you see? The next year, EB does a fantastic job at the JV level of getting those girls prepared for Salem. Same with West Branch, with Shepherd and others. It seems like when they get there to that varsity level, they are prepared. Like they may not have time, and it may take them a game or two, right, to get like Poland. I think it took them a couple of games to get into that stretch. Now you're starting to see it pay off, where it's like, oh, these girls are prepared. You just had to get them there for that actual game time.
Let's see. I guess you could call it the question of the day since it's been quit for a while. What?
Not real.
I don't know about that. I'm not following you on that one.
More respect to Big Ben. That's respect.
We didn't even get there, man. I thought I was gonna have a whole half hour. You bailed me out, man. You bailed me out. I
saw you there, and I was like, I was sitting at work, and I was done. So I was like, oh, let me hop on, help you out here.
Kudos for you wearing that brown shirt today, by the way.
Hey, it's like I said. Am I disappointed? Yes, but am I shocked? Not really. I mean, when have the Browns put back-to-back seasons together? Just from take off my Browns fan cap. I like to think I'm a realistic one. I'm not shocked. I'm kind of shocked at how the season went, where now we're pointing fingers at people. Like John Johnson was kind of calling out the staff today. I don't know if you saw any of that. He said they need to get some yoga instructors and to help with the soft tissue muscles injuries that they've had over the past couple of years. He kind of said they're not close with the training staff. That's the part that I don't like to see as a fan, right? But I think you keep with Baker and you keep with Kevin. You can't keep doing this.
DJ Folkley says, great question. Top boys and girls coaches. In the
girls, you got to go Walt DeShields.
No matter which way you go on this, you're going to have arguments.
Birch.
There's so many.
There's a lot.
Birch is in there for me. I hate this.
Got Hamilton. You don't like doing it because I think you could do a top 10 in coaches.
How different would it be from the top 10 teams, though?
That's a good point.
That's where I'm at. You want to look at the top 10.
I would throw Sigler some love at United.
Oh, he's phenomenal. I remember the days where United barely had a program in basketball, in volleyball, and
kind of similar to what Sebring's going through.
Yeah, if you're not taking notes on what's going on in United right now from their girls programs, then man, go grab a pen and paper and start jotting it down because they're doing it the right way. And Josh Sigler is a big, and I mean big, part of what they're doing. DJ Ogilvy as well, the athletic director, making sure that the girls are getting their attention. But the boys programs, they just keep putting them out. I mean, they used to be farm boys. They're not so much. And
they got wrestling too now. Which, when I was at school at West Branch, we had a couple United kids because we had wrestling, and I think it was my senior year really when United was like, "Let's get wrestling. We need to, to keep those
McCracken?
3 or 4."
The girl from United, I think her last name's McCracken. It's like a WWE name.
I believe so.
It's either.
She's good.
Is it Dallas?
From what I've
Dallas
been hearing.
McCracken or Dakota McCracken? I can't remember.
The guy at work was talking. She's the real deal.
Yeah.
I'm not big on wrestling. I like watching it. I couldn't tell you anything about it though.
Unless they're swinging steel chairs, dude. I don't know much about wrestling. That's about.
So what did you think of the Steelers? What did you think of them?
I tell you what I thought. I thought we were gonna have a tie last night, and
I was about
that was
to terrible, wasn't it?
Oh, I wasn't nervous. I just thought it was coming. I was just sitting there. I'm like, okay, this is getting too weird. For Collinsworth to call it out 78 times during the game.
That's what I didn't like.
Because I mean, there's always going to be conspiracy theorists on the internet, and here it comes, and then you start believing it. You start buying into it whenever you get down to that, and you're like, wait a minute, they got a 2-touchdown lead. There's no way. They're up by 12. There's no way. What? How did that happen?
I'll say this: Herbert's not the problem. That dude is. Watching him, he hit that 4th and 21. down 15 for that touchdown.
Oh, yeah.
That was.
That's where I thought it was scripted, man.
Oh,
They went
I'm
like
with you.
7 for 8 on 4th downs. I'm like, who does this? Why call that play on 2nd down? Why are you calling on 4th down?
I agree with Jeff right here. Big game against Poland.
Yeah.
Can they keep it? It's like when we did the Salem game. It just seemed off for them. Like just wasn't there that day. And then you look at the Springfield game. Was that the next week or maybe a week and a half later? Mm-hmm. Kind of the same thing. It's like I'm interested to see if Poland can come out with that or not. If United can come out with that fire, because if they can come out with like that fire and the intensity, I think they could give Poland a good game. But could they keep up with them? No, that's going to be the.
I said it at the beginning of the broadcast. If United wins against Poland, these power rankings are all going in the blender.
Oh, I would have no idea what to do if United wins.
Like they got to be in top 5, right?
You would argue, right? Because West Branch doing what they did, right?
Everybody jumped on the West Branch train after that Marlington victory. So when you do that, what's good for the goose is good for the gander, right?
But I think these next 2 weeks in girls basketball is massive. I mean, we got Salem, Marlington this week. Liberty Champion, is that tonight or is that Wednesday?
Liberty Champion.
I know those two play coming up. That's a good game. That's big for both of them.
Liberty Champions tonight. Brian Oatridge has the call.
I don't think Champions should get hurt if they lose, in my opinion.
But Liberty should?
I don't think Liberty. In my opinion, Liberty wins. I'm going to put them over West Branch. That's me, though. I don't know what everybody else would do, but I would put Liberty over West Branch with that.
That's interesting. Last comment before we get to our Joe Dickey Electric. What's your spark?
Did he, though? I mean, they were going to run it either way, right? But I see what he's saying. Well, he blew it on that 4th down call on his own 18. Granted, they only got a field goal out of it, so I guess you could say he didn't really blow it. But
I got to imagine Staley's over on the other sideline thinking, what are you doing? Like
big?
We both go to the playoffs if you just stop.
How much guts does that take to call it on 4th down and go for it on your own 18? On your own 18 in the 4th quarter. I don't know too many coaches that could do that.
There's something going on those sidelines because a regular coach does not go for it on 4th and 18 or 4th.
It's like he's playing Madden, isn't it?
On the 18, yeah. But he's nuts. Like watching him coach this year, I'm like, what is wrong with this dude? Like he doesn't punt. He doesn't do any of that stuff. Like I'm sitting like he's.
Did you see Dolphins fired Brian Flores?
Yeah, I don't get it.
I made a joke to my friends and family that I would fire Kevin for Brian, but that's just because I think what Brian's done with Ryan Fitzpatrick and Tua, arguably, like I've said, the most underrated coach in the NFL. You probably are going to be shocked, Mike Tomlin. That dude gets no credit. If you give that Mason Rudolph and Duck Hodges team to, I would not any other coach, but most other coaches, they're not getting a winning season.
Hang on. It's the Joe Dickey Electric. What's your spark? Presented by Joe Dickey. Over 60 years of powering the Mahoning Valley. I'm going to try to get to it. I'm losing my voice the more I talk. You want to go first?
Yeah. Give a positive spark. Browns didn't finish last, so it's something. We haven't finished last in 2 years, so disappointment with how the year went, but they did, I guess, beat a backed up Bengals squad, and I guess we were backed up as well. I don't count that game. But to not finish last, I think, is big because just building on momentum. Just see if we can hop into that conversation next year, which I guess we were in it this year, but we'll see. Just see if you can build on it.
This year.
I would agree.
Mine is going to be it's kind of a positive and negative spark. I don't understand, and this is why I had to go to the spark before when you talk about Tomlin. years ago, 5 years ago, something like that. Antonio Brown jumps on online
I
on
know what you're gonna
Facebook
say.
Live and does his thing in the locker room, and he gets ridiculed, just bashed up and down. And okay, I get it, I understand it. Last night, Mike Tomlin dancing on TikTok with his players.
Never thought I'd see the day.
We're seriously gonna dance on TikTok because we got in as a 7 seed, and we're
But that's Mike though. He's
no, it's
like
not.
that.
Mike Tomlin's the guy that uses
I'm
big
saying from
words.
like the players' coach. He's
The
like
standard
that.
is the standard. That's how it is
That's true.
here. We play a
Tomlinism.
division opponent.
I love him.
That's like, listen, I love him too, but you can't sit there. That's like a parent saying, and we've all been there. Whether you were a parent or you're talking about your parents, your dad
Never
says
thought of it like
you
that.
can't have Reese's Pieces for breakfast, and then he sneaking Reese's Pieces with the pantry open. Like, come on,
Yeah, I never
Dad.
thought of it like that. I never
Yeah,
thought of it like that.
You
Sure.
can't tell somebody not to do something and then do it. Like, the internet doesn't lose; it's undefeated. So when I look at that, I saw that last night. I'm like, Tomlin, while I love him, you can't do that. Like, you're
I agree.
above
I
that.
see what you're saying.
You're above that. Like, you can't. I know you're excited. You're a wild card team. You get to go play the Chiefs. Congratulations. Here's your ticket. Enjoy. Now, that being said, I'm the crazy guy that thinks we got a chance.
Hey, there's
play-
always a chance.
We play in the dirt. We muck up football games. We got a chance. So, even though they smoked us by 170 a couple weeks ago, we got a chance and we got the storyline. So let the WWE writers start writing Big Ben's obituary. So they did it yesterday. We'll see how it goes again. Amo, thank you for joining me.
Oh, of course. I saw you not struggling, but
I felt
it's tough to do it by yourself.
I was trying to swim, man. I was paddling in the deep end and it wasn't going well. So
Yeah, you're
thanks
good.
for popping in. That's gonna do it for this show. Tune in tomorrow. Hopefully we'll have some guys coming back. I know Donnie's out on a meeting, so I appreciate you stopping by. And then we got plenty to talk about after a big
I'd
night
like to talk to
basketball.
Donnie. See how that Boardman Fitch game. I got to watch a little bit of it. I didn't get to actually watch it. You know what I mean? I was watching who was Springfield play that day? Salem.
Oh, okay. Pretty
Listening
good.
to your great voice.
Not so great.
Salem
right now.
had them. Salem was up, what, 10? Were they up 10?
Salem?
Yeah, weren't they up?
Early, maybe.
And then they had those 5 straight turnovers that just done.
Springfield took over a game like I've never seen. I've never seen.
Drew Weir had.
Yeah, it was interesting. Now, Salem's battling some stuff internally right now that I think sucks, and I feel bad for Coach Andres, but I digress.
I'm telling you, if they could get it together, you were talking about sleepers earlier. That's a team that. Who was the team you said the other day you wouldn't want to play in the girls? That the record doesn't show it. But that's one that would give you a fight. You said it. I forget. I'm not going to call you out on that, but Salem would be the same for the boys. Like, they're not going to go down easy. Oh, it was East Palestine. You're talking about the girls. That's not a team you want to face.
Yeah, and listen, are they going to go win a state championship? No, but they haven't had their entire team on the floor at one time yet. And Boardman's the same spot, and Salem probably the same spot. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
Hey, let's talk tomorrow. What do you say?
Yeah.
3 to
Yeah.
4 right here on YSN. See you guys.